Yo, 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 yo. It's stream number 29. Working on implementing all the things that need implementing. Basically, looking at all the matches of the to-do macro in my code and picking the ones that I feel like working on. Function looks like one that sounds fun. Or I should say, function sounds like fun to do. So let's do it. Test-driven development says, first we're going to create a module called function in the test folder. Then we're going to go to the top level test and say mod function. Then we're going to go and steal someone else's test. I'm rather fond of break, actually. Or am I? I want one to actually test the error flag. I don't have to type it all, though. Pick one. Oh, here's one. We'll just take this one. Function is there. Paste. All right, and then call this one test function. Okay, so let's have a function called from a part. So why don't we just say like return bar 4 and 2 and bar will be return x times 10 plus 2. This is going to force me to implement binary expressions, isn't it? How about we just do add to start with? So like 40 and 2. Or x plus y? Or maybe I can just do it without having arguments. Or I can do it this way. I have while loops, right? So y equals y. While y is greater, no, that's another binary expression, isn't it? Or I can just do while y. I'm trying to do this with existing implementation. So x equal x. Since we've implemented assignment and we've implemented while loops and we implemented increment and decrement, there's a very, very elaborate way to get to 42. All right. Should hit a not yet implemented error. Unexpected token on line 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Right here. Oh, yeah. This has to have parentheses around it. Although I want to revisit that at some point. Do I have a note for that? Nope. Let's add a note. See if we can get rid of required parentheses around conditions. Okay. So run again. Not yet implemented. Per function, exactly. All right. So I believe the way I want to implement expression function is it's like parsing a part, only we discard the component when we're done. It can't parse any bits, and its value becomes the result of the expression. So I'm gonna steal from, I think it's ingestion. We don't have that open. Okay, and then statement part. What does build part do again? Okay, we don't need to do this because we don't have a bound or an origin. I do have the args though. And we technically have a new formatted, although it would be nice if I just didn't have to pass an origin at all. New unformatted with value. You know, I just realized new unformatted with value is just calling, or new unformatted is calling new unformatted with value of none. So can't this just call self new unformatted with value none? And then it's not so redundant, right? Yeah. Let me make a new one of these because we would have new formatted without origin. Would just call self new formatted with format and none. Right? Then I could use that with functions. First though, I wanted to refactor out part of where is it? Build part. This, I don't know why I wrote this that way. Maybe it was late at night and I wasn't thinking very clearly. Because this is all like really ugly looking. I understand why I did it. Because we can't, there's no try for return scope. I should say there's no try for result to turn it into a, well, return scope has nothing to do with try, so I can't do a question mark. And this unwrap or else is really meant to catch the error from build part. So really, it makes more sense to say that first, actually. Then I wouldn't have to do this weird map thing, right? I think that was just so that I could have part and return scope show up there. But yeah, I could just move this around and reorganize this. And then rather than doing an unwrap or else, we would just do a let okay or else. Oh, actually, this is because I might have wanted to use the error, but I could have used a match, right? Anyway, I'm just gonna leave myself a to-do here. Maybe consider refactoring. The unwrap or else really goes with the build part. And then it might be better to just use a map. Yeah, match. Okay, we'll get back to that later. So I want to reuse some of the build part, which is constructing the arguments, because functions also have arguments, right? We're going to create a component, but a slightly different way. It'll have no origin. Ingest component, we still call this ingest in context. I think so. Because actually, I think we can shortcut this because everything is going to be a local. And we're disposing of it anyway, so we can just call direct into ingest in context, right? Okay, let's say I call ingest in context directly. I needed to have built the context first, so where does that get? Is that so? There's a context there. Where do we? Oh, right. Here's the new context. Okay, so but I'm gonna shortcut in ingest context and go straight to ingest component and call it straight ingest in context. These names still aren't quite right. Anyway, yes. Why do I have a test for this? When would we ever not have a format? This should be a expect, not a less. It should be an expect because I don't think it shouldn't be possible to get here with the grammar as I've written it. There's probably no test that can get to this, right? Look, I don't want to get distracted though. Let's just mark another to do. I don't think. Let's just move this in here. I don't think it's possible to reach this code. Oh, okay, so we get the format though. We're adding to the path. Yeah, that's important for diagnostics, right? Yes, and then yeah, we shouldn't hit any of these because these all require a bitstream, and so you'll immediately hit that, which is fine. Yeah, okay. So we are going to call this for functions because this doesn't like have anything that would prevent us from using it. Populate arguments. Yeah, that's what we do. Actually, what does populate composite arguments? What does that actually do? It adds it actually adds a part. That's, yeah, we want to keep those parts because we want to know what the function's arguments actually were. Yeah. The other thing I thought of just now is functions can only have parts that come from arguments. If we make a local, they get removed. You can't have a part inside of a function because you don't have a bit stream. But what if I wanted to have like a value computed internally to the function? I think then we might want to have locals that we keep as parts. So, but maybe the default for a local maybe would be to discard it, but so let me make a note for myself to do. Consider allowing locals marked in some way to be saved as parts of a component. Right now, they're never saved. So maybe we would do something like other languages might do. We would have like an export statement, or maybe just an extra symbol, or something like that, or some technique to record that we want to preserve its name and value, separate from that of the function's return value. Okay, keeping that a to-do for now. Generating a lot of to-dos for myself. Okay, so yeah, so first things first, there's a piece of build part that I want to refactor out because I want to reuse it. And that's the actual construction of arguments. So this depends on statement and self. So if I refactor that now, it should refactor it to a function in self with statement. Yeah, exactly. So it's great. So we just need to, I think this is like evaluate arguments. So you get statement's not the right thing. Actually, I want to have it be the arguments. So what is statement args? A vector of expressions. So let's change this to be args. And let's change it from vector to slice because that's the polite thing to do. And then I change this just args. And then I change this to borrow statement.args. Okay. And then I think we don't need that at all, right? And then I can reduce this to just okay. And remove that, and then remove this semicolon there. And then, yeah, we already have the try in there, so I can just strip that away, and that makes it actually a lot simpler. Cool. And it's what it should be. Evaluating arguments is just iterate through the arguments, map each expression to the evaluate expression, collect them into a result with a vector or an error, right? And my understanding about collective result is that it eagerly exits on error. So it actually won't evaluate all the expressions. It'll only evaluate the expressions that up to the first error. And that makes me think I should have a test for that to make sure that I'm right. Add test to ensure evaluating arguments stops on the first error. Okay. So I want to reuse this. When we call functions, we're going to evaluate the arguments, make a new data component, package it with its args so that we can then call ingest, where is it? Ingest in context, which means we would put it into the context at some point. Where is that normally done? Oh, right here. Okay. Okay, so let me grab that and go to, where are we going? Oh, sorry. Rough throat tonight. Expression, right? Oh, yeah, we need to actually make a placeholder for this. Yeah, okay, we'll just lose what we had in the clipboard for now. Or maybe not, I can just type this. So self.evaluate function. I'm assuming that's an F with, or name and arguments. Let's see what actually we have. Args. Close enough. Okay, so the evaluate functions are in the same place, so we're making it right here. Actually, before I lose what's in my clipboard by accident, let me paste. Oh, I already lost it. Never mind. Okay, self, right? Well, actually, this is the context. We're going to mutate the self, right? Because we're going to end up... Actually, we might not. Yeah, let's see if we can get away with not mutating the context. So self, and then the name is... See if I can get this right. I think it's going to be a string. And the next thing is going to be args, which is expression. To do. See how close I got. Oh, I am totally wrong. Although maybe it's not too far off. Yeah, it's just the return value is wrong. Okay, so yeah. The result has to be one of these. Makes sense. Cool, it actually worked. Even though technically they're not the same, they're dereferenceable as, right? A string can go to a slice, vector can go to an array. Okay, so then I said before I wanted to call the function that evaluates the arguments, right? So we would set let, I guess we're just replacing args with their evaluation. So that's self dot evaluate arguments args. And if we early return there, the type we get for arguments is a vector of options. Let's leave the to do in there until we're actually done. Oh, evaluate arguments is mutable? Why is that? That doesn't need to be mutable, does it? Aha, it doesn't. Yeah, don't make anything mutable unless it needs to be. Okay, so we have the actual arguments. And I want to reuse the code that fills in the formal arguments with actual arguments. So this comes from ingestion, right? This part, the part that I had in my clipboard before and I lost it. So we're going to get this return scope, which we don't care about. We're going to get the data, which is what we're going to return. So we might as well just say data. And then we're going to make a new composite with here I don't care. So this is just going to be a new component, right? Data component. Yeah, why is it not letting me fill that in? This is not imported yet? Aha, it's not imported. New formatted without origin. So we need to have the format, which is name. And we get the component, so we're just storing that straight into as a composite. Boundary is none, right? Yeah, no boundary. And being formatted without origin, we have no origin, so we can't parse any bitstream. And then we put the args here, right? I wonder if that does need to be a vector after all. Let's see. Oh, is this not part of the context? Is this part of... It's part of the ingestion. Oops. It doesn't need to be though, right? Do we ever use self here? We just use self so we can call self ingest in context, but what does that call? How does that use self? Used in self custom and then just to get the format? Oh, that's a problem. Yeah, ultimately we have to find out where the function format is. How do I do that from evaluate expression? I didn't think about that before. So evaluate expression being a method of context, it only has the context and the expression. But we do need the formats in there. Okay, so I had been considering merging these because we have the formats in the ingestion. How bad would it be to merge ingestion with context? It probably wouldn't be too bad because this is not a mutable reference. Therefore, we can make, the thing is, if whatever we put these into, and if we put this into context, we have to be able to duplicate them. I think the hardest part would be this callback. If we did need to carry that into the context, we would have to do so by borrowing it, or we'd have to make this reference counted with a ref cell because it's mutable. But you know what we can do is we can just like pass formats to whenever we build a context and not pass the on error. So let's see if I can do that. So we're saying that, hey there, GS Volt, you are the first tonight to say anything in chat. As a reward, my bot will answer your question. Yep, implementing my parser engine. Hey there, Extremely Ryan. Extremely Ryan is the one that told me about cargo next test, which I can't run and show you because unfortunately I have a compiler error, but let me just assure you, it is a great way to run unit tests in Rust. Hey there, Nightshade Dude. You've been lurking all this time. You could have been first, Nightshade Dude, and you squandered the opportunity. I did like it extremely there, and it's extremely helpful. I remember your name because I think of next test being extremely cool. Then who told me about it? It must have been Extremely Ryan. You have a very easy to remember name. For some reason, very extremely easy to remember. You're in about 5 minutes, so I've been going for 28 minutes. So yeah, you've been lurking for a while. That's why you picked it. Smart. Smart. Why do I have this here? That must have been like a previous attempt to do something. Oh, right. I wrote that and I realized, why don't we just put it in the span helpers, which we did. So that can go. Okay, so the idea here is to stuff a copy of the formats there. And I didn't have a comment there. But do I have a comment in the old C version of this? That would be, what would that be called? Decomposition. Decomposer. .hpp. Format. I do. So I'm going to copy that to place there. And then we're going to rewrap that. This is the collection of format specifications for the let's just use passive voice here. This is the collection of format specifications used to break down bit streams. Okay, here's the consequence of putting this here. I have to make I have to give the context a lifetime. So that's the consequence. Yes, this is all in the Rust programming language. And if you would like to learn more about Rust, I encourage you to start there at the rust-lang.org/learn. All right, so let's see what nasty things I have to do now that I've infected context with a lifetime. So I think here I can just elide it away. Yeah. So when we make a new context with a composite, I think we're going to have to fill in those formats. So this one, I won't be able to elide it. Actually, I might still be able to elide it away. So we take that, which we need, and we'll put it there, I guess, and we'll try to elide away the lifetime by just putting it. Let's see if I can get away with this. Yes, maybe. Although we have something that ... there means something else didn't like that line. Okay, yeah, I think new with part also needs formats. Okay, and we have errors. Let's just track down the errors. Okay, so ingest is an ingestion. So here's the moment of truth. Can I pass self.formats here? Looks like it works, but I've been let down before in the past. All right, can I again elide away lifetime? Yes, I can. Right. The whole point of doing that is so that that we can move ingest component into context. So we're gonna punt on this one for now. Let's just comment all this out for now. We'll get back to that. Solve the other errors first. Elided lifetime not allowed here. It's pseudo elided, right? If we say that, it's explicitly elided. 2 errors. Okay. Yeah, this one we need to do self.formats. Okay, and then more. Uh-oh. Lifetime may not live long enough. Associated function was supposed to return data with lifetime 2, but it's returning lifetime with 1. Let's call this the lifetime in this reference 1. So we actually need to see that diagnostic. Clear, cargo, clippy. Lifetimes are tricky. What can I say? So that's what should be formats, right? The return type is 2. I think we have to say that they're the same lifetime. So I guess that means we can't really elide away this lifetime way up here, right? So we'll call that formats. And that means we have to declare it right here, formats. So that down here we can use formats. Now it's fine with it. And I do it here. We're basically telling the Rust compiler the lifetime of self is going to be the same as the lifetime of the formats, so it's okay to put it into it. If I want to read a CSV file from the internet, what crate can I use in Rust? Yeah, Extremely Ryan gave you a great starting point. So we would go either to crates.io or my personal favorite is libs.rs, and we type CSV. It looks like it's the CSV crate. There you go. Wait, the page was removed. Oh, what is this? What is this? Is this a joke? Hold on. Is it just CSV that has this? Okay, there's something about that crate that the libs.rs person didn't like. A request or something to pull from the internet. Yeah. But like, I've never seen this before. Calls cryptocurrencies a magic bean scam, e.g., Burnt Sushi doesn't want to be party to what he sees as sneering or similar editorializing on a website that he perceives to be a crate index, even if he agrees with the substance of the editorial. What does CSV have to do with cryptocurrency stuff? I feel I feel like I've like stepped into some kind of drama. Oh, is it like the person who runs lib.rs had a falling out with the developer of the CSV crate? I bet that's what it is. Okay, so it's some kind of drama between. So, okay. That's funny though. Yeah, so it's the author of the CSV crate had some drama with whoever runs the lib.rs site. Yeah, like how did we find that? That's like really crazy. Anyway, I guess drama aside, this would be the crate you'd want, and then you'd to get it from the internet, something like request. I made my own for this because I thought it was fun, but this one's fairly standard. It's just spelled funny. It's batteries included HTTP client for Rust. So you'd use this to do HTTP requests as a client to get stuff from the internet, and then you'd use this crate to parse those CSV files. That's funny though. I didn't expect that at all. All right. So we're not using the formats yet, but we will. We will. I have a feeling that context is going to essentially become our major class here. In fact, it's probably going to consume ingestion completely. And ingestion probably will just have top level functions, right? Probably. In fact, ingestion might just be a builder. Or no, it can be a top level thing with its interface that goes in. Yeah, this ingest probably it's a nice top level thing, but I bet you what we're going to end up doing is ingest component has got to go into context. Which makes sense because if the only reason to have self was to use the context, then if if the only reason to have self there was to use the formats and we put formats into context, then we don't need that self anymore, and this might as well be a method of context, right? The person who maintains libdars had a big falling out with the entire Rust community, not just the CSV guy. Can I get an explain like I'm five of binary parsing tool? Is that like a hex feeder? Yeah, you got the right gist of it, Shade, the developer. So I like in what my project is trying to attempt to Wireshark. So with Wireshark, it's a graphical user interface to a network data dissector. I think that's what they call it, right? So you get bytes from a network interface like Wi-Fi or Ethernet, cable modem, whatever, and it understands the formats of various kinds of packets on the network, and it will just take the byte stream and figure out what the packets are. And then if you pick a packet, it shows you what the different protocol layers are in that packet, and you can open that up and click on individual fields. And when you do, it'll show you which bytes that corresponds to. And you can also go to the bytes and just click on a byte, and it'll show you which packet it's in and what field of the packet it is, right? So that's what I'm making. I don't know if a 5-year-old can understand Wireshark, but that's probably the most approachable answer. Is I'm just for fun in Rust, I'm making my own version of something like Wireshark. But mine, I don't plan to use with the network. It's just an example. I want mine to be like really, really generic. So, for example, you could use it to parse GIF files, right? GIF. I say GIF because then it pisses everyone off. So essentially, it describes binary data in a way that it looks like a structure, but it's a function. And the function, you run through the function and the bytes at the same time, and you're kind of matching. So the bytes that come in are matched to pieces of the header, and then the logical screen, and then the data blocks and the trailer. And if you get to the end, then the data match the format, and you know what each bit means. So that's what I'm doing. So I'm working on the part today that works with function calls. So here's my unit test. And this is just a contrived example to test that we can call a function while we're parsing some data. And that basically a function is like a data format that doesn't actually do any parsing. It's like pure function calls. So given some arguments, it returns some value, right? That's all that a function is. So this is I had to make a very, very contrived example because I haven't implemented add in expression context yet, and I haven't done multiply. The only things I've done so far are assign, loop, plus, and increment and decrement, and return. I can't even compare yet in a while loop because the compare is a binary operator, and I haven't done binary operators yet. So I basically needed to do something to reduce two arguments to be a sum. So I'm like, okay, we'll just loop as many times as y starts out to be, and add 1 to x each time, so we should get 42 at the end. It's a silly contrived example. I'll probably come back and reduce this to something more readable after I get the other stuff implemented. So functions in my language are like part specifications, only they don't actually parse anything. So I want to make them constructed the same way. Like they can have arguments just like a format can. The only thing they can't do is actually parse anything. That's the whole point. They're supposed to be pure. Otherwise, we would have to... Otherwise, you would just make a part. You would say bar, and then now bar is a part of foo. But when you return, you're not actually parsing. You're constructing. This is an expression now. You're constructing the value that foo has overall without parsing anything. GIF, yeah, exactly. I'm going to say that, and like everyone will be ticked off. Can't please everyone, so why not just please nobody? So to evaluate a function, I want to be able to do this, but I need... Actually, I don't need anymore. Yeah, no, I do need ingest component needs to move from ingestion to context. So I have these two types that really intersect a lot, and I think I'm going to end up combining a lot of it. Like, so what ingestion has, it has the top level function to ingest means it's like take in some bits and generate a component. So the context holds on to a composite, which holds on to the original bitstream. Bitstream has a handle, which has a bitstream trait implementation, and there you can ask for bits. You can get the offset into the bitstream, all that good stuff. So essentially, we're parsing this component, but for a function, we only really want its overall value, which is going to be stored here. We're going to toss all this stuff away. It won't have an origin. We won't care about what its children are. It has a format, but that's only used to look up the function or look up the statements that we want to execute. And actually, for error, we are going to use that, right? If there's an error in a function, I think it should cause an error in the caller as well. So, but right now, the function called ingest component to turn a component into a value, it's in a class called ingestion, and I needed to move this to the context. And these, I know these names suck. Like what the heck is an ingestion, right? How come it won't let me click out once I've done that? We'll just click there. Yeah, what is an ingestion? And then what is a context? If I had comments here, it would explain it. But in general terms, context is the telling us like what we're doing at the time in terms of which component we're ingesting, what our current boundary is, because we always set a limit to how far we can parse based off of something that was told to us. The line numbers and column numbers of the current statement we're executing, what local variables we have in the current scope, path to the current component that we're ingesting, and all that. And then we're adding this, which came from ingestion, into the context. Okay, so if context is holding on to like all the state information about what we're doing, then think of ingestion as, hold on, as kind of like the top level structure that you would make to use the whole, like it's like the API, like the interface that you'd use, the API to this library. You make a new one and you tell it the formats that you want to parse with, and then you call ingest after assembling the component and then what its arguments are. So for example, with, where'd it go? I must have closed it. With the GIF, you would form a new ingestion object with a component that says the format is GIF and it has no arguments. And then you give it a bit stream and you say, go for it. The problem, so that works for top level component and for subcomponents, but the problem with a function call is it's in an expression context, and evaluate expression is what it evaluates that, and it only has access to a context. Whoops. The context, which is self, and the expression. It doesn't have the ingestion, so it doesn't have the formats that were in ingestion. So I'm having to move them anyway. And so ingestion really is just the route that you start with, where you put the formats in there before you actually parse anything. And then the context is the temporary that we're constructing to parse something, and then we're going to toss it at the end. Context have an ingestion function. Yeah, we're going to be moving it. Basically, ingestion is now going to be contextual, whereas before it was not contextual. In fact, the name, I've always thought since I wrote these functions, these names suck. And one of the things is ingest in context. It should have been a hint to me saying that function belongs in the context class. We don't need the ingestion thing at this point. It should just be like ingest with arguments, right? Given a context and arguments, just do ingestion. I think ingest component stays in ingestion, right? Or maybe not. What's the difference between these two? These names suck. There's a difference. I think this one is just a wrapper for that one, because what we do is we call it, and then we're finalizing our locals, and we're pulling the component out along with the return scope that we get directly from ingest in context. So this should be like ingest in context and then finalize locals and return the component, right? Oh, another difference. This consumes the context. This only borrows it, because this one is recursive. So this that's a good thing. So this is really, if context is a builder, then this should be the build function for the context, because it consumes the context in order to give us a data component that has been parsed. So then really this should be called ingest. This should be a context method called ingest, and this is an ingestion method that is like finalize context or ingest using context or something like that. I'm bad with names. I'm horrible with names. So it would be helpful viewing a database index file. I think it's useful for looking at any kind of file that you don't already have a nice reader for. One thing I thought about is if I'm like working on making my own games and I have my own save game files, they're probably going to be in a binary format. And I've invented my game so it has its own save file format. So there's no tool out there that can parse it. So this would be useful for that. In addition to Wireshark, if it was for protocols, one thing that viewers have raised that there's this thing called 010 editor, and that's a little bit like what I'm doing. It's like a hex editor that you can program, and you have like hundreds of formats. So this would also be useful for like if you just want to have like a little bit of a smart hex editor. Yeah, one downside is I can't open source this because of job rules. So job rule number 3, I can't put an open source license on this and publish it. I would have to find another job because that's currently a requirement. The only escape hatch for that is I have to get the company's lawyers to say it's okay. And that's like a year-long process, and it's doubtful if I would be able to release it with just one review. It's sort of worded like every time I want to make any kind of commit, I have to have the lawyers okay it. Hopefully that situation changes. If that ever changes and I can do open source projects, then definitely. Until then, I'm just tempting you guys with tantalizing potential tools that you can't use. My apologies. So yeah, ingest stays here. We're going to put the formats in, right? So I think we're just we're moving. No, this stays here. It consumes the context. It doesn't need a self though, does it? Right. It's sort of like a builder so it moves to context. It doesn't need self. The thing that moves is ingest in context. So let's move it. We're moving it now. Oh, also along with ingest is custom. We're moving these both. And perhaps execute statements as well. And execute statement. All of this moves, right? I think so. In fact, that's basically all of ingestion except for, so yeah, ingestion really just is the API of the library. The library is called ingestion, so it makes sense, right? So this all moves into context, which is an internal structure that is meant to be recursive, and it's going to be the home for all of these functions. So where do I put it here? I'm trying to keep this sorted alphabetically, so it would go here, and then we have to fix things up. So let's change how we would look from the top level. So we build a context, and then what? We would build it and then tell it to ingest component. Oh, it has to be marked as public for that to work, right? Yes, so public. Actually, it was ingest component. So no, that's here and that stays here, right? Oh no, I was gonna move that too, right? Yeah, that moves too. Yeah, okay, so everything moves here. Okay, so this should say this dot ingest component arguments, right? I think so. So let's fix that one. Ingest component. Public function that just does mut self. So this is self, right? So this goes away, essentially. Context is self. And then, yeah, this context goes away. Context really is replaced with self. Self and just, so this self goes away. I like this. This is starting to make more sense to me. So self has the formats now, and self there. So that means execute statements doesn't need a self because it's a method of self. So that's not needed. So then, again, execute statement doesn't need a context because that's self. And context again turns into self, which means conditional statement doesn't need a self. So everything's just sort of falls, it all falls through. Of course, we gotta import all these things. There's no self there. Yeah, all these comma contexts go away. Nice to see. Okay. Why not add context as a private field to ingestion? Because it's the ingestion is recursive. So, and every level we have to make a new context. So, the context is like a local variable to a function that's being called recursively. So I can't store it in the top level one. If that makes sense. It's hard to see. I think it was around here somewhere, though. Where was it? Somewhere here, there's the recursion happens. I don't see it right now. Context. Was it? Oh, well, when I find it, I'll say something. Oh, it was this new with part. Whatever calls new with part. Is that here? New with part. Here it is. So when you execute a part statement, you start with the context of the outer component, and you're going to now parse a part of that outer one. So we form a new context from the existing context and a part. So, and its format. So that's why this takes a reference to a self and returns a new self. That's the recursion. So if there's only one ingestion at the very top and there's a new context at every level, we can't just like store it in ingestion because that only gives us one slot to put a context. I could do it if in the ingestion I made it a stack, which is really just moving it from the call stack to a stack on the heap, so to speak, right? So I could put it, if I put I could put context in ingestion, but it would have to be like a stack of contexts, and we would always be looking at the top of that, right? And we push a new context on the stack every time we descend into a part level. And it actually would just map, conceptually just maps to the indentation level. So we'd start for a context for GIF, and then we would enter a new context for header, and then header would, well, that doesn't have any parts. But let's see, logical screen would go, would descend into logical screen descriptor. And so by the time we get to here, there'd be 3 contexts on the stack, and each context would be one level. So the top would be that, descriptor, second level logical screen, third level GIF. The while loops and the ifs don't actually push new stacks, new context on the stack. They're just what do you call them? They're like code flow control. So a while loop has sub statements, and because it's in a while loop, when we get to the last statement, we evaluate the condition and we go to the next statement again. But we're still operating within the GIF context. That's why when we parse data, data is a member of GIF. It's parent context. There is no GIF.while.data. We do incorporate the while loop into the structure. It makes everything, every part inside of a while loop becomes a vector. So the first pass through the while loop, we populate data index 0. Second loop through, we populate data index 1. That's one of the oddities of having a structure that's also a function, right? If we're defining a structure and then you get into a loop, conceptually you're making a vector now. And every iteration of the loop is filling in a new index. And if I had a nested loop, like another while inside of this while, it would be a two-dimensional context. All right, I totally broke everything though. We need to fix this. So we'll do the statements in a bit. Well, actually, there's no better time than now, right? Let's go to, see, it doesn't even know where to look for that. It's in statement here. Ah, that's right. I think all I need to do is change this to context, and then we're good. We're moving all of this from ingestion to context, basically. Ingestion, we don't need anymore at this level. Ingestion is only top level, right? So that wherever we see context, it goes away. Context goes away from all the arguments. So this actually cleans up the code quite a bit, because we're merging the self with the context in a sense. Context, let's just say all context dots become self dots. Okay. Right, self. It's gonna be some holdouts, right? Self. One thing I am worried about is borrow checker issues. Private. But okay, whatever. I think it might be because of the context thing there. Yep. I hope I don't run into borrow checker issues. That kind of terrifies me. This is a problem because that is part of ingestion. So we have to somehow like be able to get access to the callbacks. I have an idea for that though. There could be just like it's gonna have to be like either passed in and out or reference counted. Okay. Continuing on. So that's self. No, it's still context, right? But this goes away. And this becomes the composite context. We actually don't need that self arguments then, because we can get the formats from self. So this formats is composite context dot formats, and we don't need formats. Go back. We don't need that. This is self. Yeah, I got lots and lots and lots of errors. Oh, so this one actually used to be a free function of ingest. Now it's self. Makes sense. Same, no, this one just goes, that goes away. This goes away. The fact that it's private, is that because I split this into sub modules? Yeah, so this is the parent of, oh wait, no, it's not. It's in statement is in ingestion, not, so this should go into context, right? It's in the wrong module now. So we're moving it into context, move. That means context has to have a module statement, and ingestion should no longer have a module statement. There. Okay, cool. When the red turns into yellow, I'm happy. Okay, so we don't need, that's going to change, right? Actually, what is that going to be? It's just going to be super context, right? Cool. That we'll have to punt on for now. Why don't I just comment it out? Because I'm worried about bar checker issues. Self. Just component. Wait, what's the error there? Oh, hold on. Takes one argument because the first one's self. Oh, right. So we actually need to take this out and put it there. Oh, all the errors in this file went away. But we have more errors here. 3 arguments. It shouldn't. Go back to 2. Okay. Okay, when the errors start going down, I get happy. It feels like we're on the right track. So another cool thing about Rust is like you can totally like do what I'm doing where you like completely thrash the internal structure of your program, and you can just kind of by chasing down the errors, you can get it working, and like you don't really have to keep it all in your head even. You just kind of chase the errors, and then you just do what is right in every place where you find an error. So here what I'm doing is right is that actually should work. Why? Oh, because it's self : that needs to be self dot. And then this probably is that we have context. See? I knew it. Oh, error free. Look at that. We just have warnings. That's perfect. Let's just get rid of the warnings by deleting the unused uses. 4 warnings left. Path is never used. Oh, we will use that. I just had that commented out, the use of it, right? We don't need that. We'll use name in args. We just haven't gotten there yet. Okay, so we're done. So I can run all my unit tests to make sure I didn't break everything. I broke some things though. I know that, but I shouldn't have broken everything. So I broke 3 things. Error. Error is broken because the callback is not available to context right now. And function, we just never finished writing it. That's great. So actually, why did it only run 36 tests? Shouldn't it run like all 350 of them? Why did that? Is it the panic just stops it from running? Or is that a bug? Is this an older run? Or let me just do it clear. Run that again. I guess it just stopped running. Okay, well, I want to make sure I didn't actually break too many things, so let me comment out this test for now. Test error. With value, without value, and yeah, so the way we comment them out, so to speak, is with this next test at least, maybe with the built-in unit test, I can just mark it ignore and it won't run it. Okay, and then test function. Ignore for now. I just want to make sure that nothing else is broken. Wow. Awesome. Everything is working. Even though I completely squished a bunch of methods from one class into another, it just kind of worked out. So let's ignore this one for now and repair the damage to the error. So this one I broke by not actually doing the on-error callback because it's not available, right? So it's this one where it's commented out. Nope, not that one. One of these is commented out. That one? Here we go. So this one, problem is that this is in ingestion right now. We have to be able to get to the callbacks, but I don't want to have to like have the ingestion borrowed all the way down the call stack. I'd rather just like share the callbacks. I'd put the callbacks into the context. So two ways I could do it. I can either make it a reference counted pointer, or I can make it an option and then like basically we stick it into the context, and when we have to do a subcontext, we move it into the subcontext, and when we're done, we move it back out. Actually, I don't even have to make it an option. We can move it out and move it back in, right? If it is a cell. I have to put it in something. Either has to be a cell or an option. Okay, well, let me find where it was an ingestion. Oh, it already was optional. Well, there we go. That makes it easier. It's already an option. So I can just put that in context. And we can just move it in and then move it back out. Yeah, I can put this anywhere. Let's put it here. And I probably even have a comment for this in the C++ code. Error callback. Here it is. This is the callback to invoke if an error statement in the format specification of data being composed is executed. Look at that. Using 2018 error messages for fun and profit. Okay, so we just need to import that. Okay, and then now we're doing error chasing again. So missing a field here. So then I think we're just have to pass it in, right? Optional error callback, right? And then we just fill the structure field. Done. Okay, and then same thing here. Optional error callback. Fill in the field. Next error. 4 arguments, not 3. Right, so this is it's the last argument, right? Yeah, so it's self.onError.take. That's one of the cool things you can do with an option is you can take it out. And it moves it out of the option, leaving a none in its place. It's exactly what we want, right? But then I got to remember to put it back. So self. Actually, how are we getting it back if ingest component absorbs that? I think we're going to have to put it here, right? I'll do this even though it's really gross. Okay, it's gross because that's how we take it back out, right? On error.take. Or actually, I don't even need to take it. We can just move it out, right? But that's really super gross. I don't want to do that. We'll refactor that in a minute. In fact, let me put a to do here so that I don't forget. My memory is such that I have to constantly leave myself to do notes. Return fix refactor super gross return type. Okay, but going back, this will be on error, and then we just say self.onError equals on error, right? Put it back. Okay, chasing the errors. So here it needs me to do the same thing, right? We're building a new context and we're telling it to ingest. So first I'm going to say let inner context equal that. And it wants, I think as the third argument, it wants me to take that out. It might have trouble with the order of that. I guess not. This has to be mutable, right? If and else of incompatible types. Oh, right. I have to say like none and none. No. I have to put a none here. Is that right? What am I doing with that? Actually, no, I don't want to put that there. What I want to do is say let part on error return scope equals that, and then yeah, this is part of that ugliness. And then between the two, we're going to do self.onError equals onError. Yeah, I was afraid of that. So what we can do here is we can say let onError equals this. Paste that, take it out first, then we can call self. I guess it doesn't need to be mutable because we're just telling it to build, basically. One error left. Okay, so before we borrow self on error, we need to get a self path. I forget what the type was on that. It wants a slice, so I can get a slice, right? Actually I can't. But I can do another trick. Let on error equals self.onError.take. Then I can call this. Then I can put it back. It's another super gross trick. Option. Why does it not let me do that? It needs to be mutable. Yep. So we got away with it. We got away with doing horrible things in Rust. Cool. So now that should have repaired those tests, right? We're no longer skipping them. They should pass now. Great. So the only thing we're skipping is the function test, which we can now do because we have access to ingest component. Hooray. Move the to-do. Actually, just delete the to-do now. Ingest component. Right, this moves around, right? We first make, and I know we're gonna have to do what we did before too, so why don't we just say it? Let inner context equal that. And it was composite boundary formats on error. Composite boundary formats on error. Formats. Self.formats and on error. Self.onError.take. Okay, and then after we make the context, then we say that with on error equals inner context.ingest the arguments, basically, yeah. And then we put self on error, we put it back. And we return the data's value. Why can't I take it out? Oh, because if we get that far, it worked, right? Yes. But it also reminded me I got to do a few more things. So that needs to be mutable. Which means this has to be mutable. Which means we have other errors that need to be mutable. Uh-oh. We have a mutability infection now. All of this needs to be, yeah, it's infecting everywhere. Make it stop, make it stop. I don't like this. Yep, and then we have this problem. Okay, back up. Think about this. Why did I need that to be mutable? Where were we here? This should not be mutable. This should not be mutable. Okay. Is it because of this? Yes. So, I guess that does make sense. So we can't do this taking problem. Yeah. So then that makes me think it should be put into a cell and reference counted. So then that means this is a RC ref cell so that we can call it even if we don't have ref cell, so you can interior mutability. You can mutate this without needing to have a mutable exclusive access, because a ref cell you just call borrow, and at runtime it checks to make sure you have exclusive access. The multi-threaded version of that is called mutex, which you might be familiar with. Single-threaded library, it's ref cell. RC lets us make clones of the callback with and have them all refer to the same one. So that changes how this works a little bit. We don't need to do this anymore, because by having it be destroyed, it just decrements the reference count. This we still need to do, but it has to be an RC ref cell. And let's let this one do the clone for me, because that seems... Oh, let me think about this. No. It should make the caller do it. Make the caller do it, yes. Same thing here. RC ref cell. There we go. Okay, back into statement. So we don't do this take business. Okay, instead, what we do is we do self.onair.borrowMute and dereference it. And it has to be mutable. So I had to put that there, which makes it a little bit strange syntactically, but it works. Trust me. Can't add RCRFCell to type definition. I don't want it to infect the API. I don't want the API user of the library to have to say that. So that's what we're getting to here, right? They should just be able to say with error callback, and we should just be able to store it. And then when we're actually ingesting, I do want to take it out. But here when we take it out, we're going to do a RC new ref cell new that. And I have to import these things. And then we don't get it back. But I think I'm allowed to take it back out, if I'm not mistaken. You might have meant to use the... No, I didn't mean to. It's... Oh, if that takes it... So, yeah, here we want to just package it up into that. So on error equal that. And then this should be on error clone. And then I just need to be able to take it back out. Like, if I can't take it back out, I'm going to have a problem. Can I do an into? How do you take something back out of a ref cell? I forget. Can you? Got too many things open. Yep, we can close this. We can Okay, yeah. Can I take something out of a cell once I put it in? Like permanently take it out? Take? Yes. I can call take. There we go. It works. At least here it works. I need to chase down the other errors. So yeah, my intent was that the user of the library sees this interface, that they make a new ingestion thing. That's probably not the best name. You make a new one and you give it the formats that you want to use. It starts with no on-error callback, but then builder pattern you can do with error callback, and it just puts the callback in there. And I don't have to expose the fact that it's reference counted or inside a ref cell, because just internally it puts it in temporarily and takes it back out. And that's because this is recursive, right? And it needs, at every level, we need to be able to call it. It works. Trust me. I know what I'm doing sometimes. So yeah, there we don't have to do this. I should just be able to say self.onerror.clone. And then I don't need to do that or this. Cool. Except for I got 2 more errors. Same thing here. I don't want to do this is clone. And then remove that and delete that. 1 error left. What's the syntax here? Would it be reborrow and then on error? Reborrow is mutable. There we go. Yeah, weird syntax. Sometimes Rust can't figure out how you want to automatically dereference it. So you have to say dereference it and then reborrow it as a mutable. Even though like this should have been able to tell me that. Yeah, sometimes you got to do that. Okay, run our test, right? We're still skipping the function test. Don't skip it. Yep, first try. We did it. We did it, chat. 350 tests all passed. First try. Just kidding. It's not the first try, but I like to say that. All right. So we have implemented functions at great expense because I have to jail my error callbacks. You know what? Also, I'm probably going to want to have more than one kind of callback in there. So why don't I just refactor out like callbacks or something like that? Actually, why don't I just put every, I just had a thought. What if the entire ingestion structure is just reference counted and is shared with every context? Cause like it's free to put itself. Well, no, we're well, but we can have a borrow of the ingestion inside the context. Maybe. I don't know. What makes sense? Either keep these separate and just make this be a structure with many different callbacks in it, or make the entire thing put that inside the ref cell and pass it around. We're already passing around the formats, right? So what if I just put the whole ingestion here? In fact, this is the ingestion, right? So what if I just put RC ref cell ingestion there? So just give it a try. So this would then be replaced with, let's just comment it out for now. This would be replaced with ingestion. Well, I don't like the name though. We call it API. RC ref cell ingestion. borrowed for some lifetime formats. See if I can get away with one lifetime. Put that. Wait, what? What doesn't it like about that? Oh, 4. No, I used it. Hold on, what? Oh, am I missing? I'm missing a greater than sign. There we go. So import that from the top level API. Actually, let's just see if it lets me put that in there at all. And we just won't use it yet. I don't want to type it again. There we go. We'll put it in there and see if it lets me do it. And if we do that, then we'll take out formats on error. We'll just pull it from the API. And then I'm kind of thinking instead of calling ingestion, we just call it API. But we export it out as ingestion to make it look like the whole library. So internally, we'll know it is the top level API. I like this idea. So API.clone for API, right? Or no, it's all just going to be API. Okay, we're going to be passing that around in the other constructor. API. Okay. Then yeah, here. Yes. Did I remember to make it a mutable pointer? I don't think I did. There. Now it is. Or is it the other way around? I think it's like that, right? Yeah. It has to be mutable. Or does it? Yeah, the callback is mutable, fundamentally. So the reference has to be mutable to be able to do it. And it's fine because it's inside of a ref cell. So we should be able to hold a mutable reference. Should be possible. Okay. I wanted to hit this level first, so let's see if this actually works. I think so because, in fact, yeah, it should still work. So let API equal RC new ref cell new self. Then this is API. It didn't complain at me. It let me put myself inside a cell, pass myself in. I think it's because it gets destroyed. This gets destroyed and we only put in a reference. So when it gets destroyed, we know that we now have mutable access again. Cool. I'm doing like really crazy things with the borrow checker. I didn't know I'd be able to get away with. So with this, it's just self.api.clone. Okay, 2 errors remain. Yes, so here it's self.api.clone. I'll be amazed if I get this to work. Okay, it has a problem with the lifetime. Yeah, we have to say that this is for the format's lifetime, right? And then it's moved. But that is an immutable reference. Can I take it out first? This might be a problem. I might have to like take that out now. Let formats equal self.formats. And then do formats there. Is that going to let me do it? Almost. I've moved self here. Oh, well. What if I didn't do that? it would actually work, but I've moved self. Can I just copy self? I can't copy. So is it because of the formats? I moved it out. Move occurs because self has type that which does not implement copy. I mean, that makes sense. It got moved on line 55. But it was okay with, oh, I see. I see what's going on. It's that I'm trying to put it back in. So either way, I think this will work because it compiles now. It's just that we can't get the error back. So this should actually pass all my unit tests and prove that I can pass the API around. Okay, we can do it. So that means I can just put this back in and I can get rid of the formats and the on error from the type completely. So context doesn't need formats or on error because we're getting it from the API. In fact, I want those comments to go into here anyway because I didn't have comments. All right, so then we don't need these, and there are my comments. Perfect. Back. I do need a comment for this. So this is a shared reference to the top level API instance being used, well, through which the parsing of the, through which all of this is, through which the context is being used. Sure, okay, and then I can get rid of these because they're readily available from API. So let's do it. So it would be, we have to borrow though, whenever we need it. API borrow goes in front though. Dot. Okay. So we don't need formats. We don't need on error. I don't need formats or on error. I don't need on error. Don't need formats or on error. Don't need that. Don't need that. Oh, no, I needed hash set, but not hash map. There we go. I got 10 errors, so that's scary. It should be all the places that we're passing the on error around though. And the, what is the other one? Formats. Cool, so that's resolved statement. Yeah, so here we don't need self or, no, we need self. We just don't need on error. Right? Actually, if we're passing self, we don't need to clone the API there either. It's readily available through self. So I can do composite context dot self. So this I can do composite context dot clone. Mismatch types. We found formats. What? Oh. This has to actually be an RC ref cell self. And it's just composite context. But to do that, we need to get the path out first, right? Borrow clone, path clone, and I'm going to need to get the boundary and current span out. This boundary, what is this? An option size. So that's copy. These are both copyable, right? Yeah. So yeah, I need to actually just get them out first. So then if I only really need to borrow once, right? Let composite. Well, I have to do this inside of an inner scope. Let context goals there, and then I can say, oh, but I need to get it out. So this is going to be ugly, but that's okay. Path, boundary, current statement span. And then I can just copy these lines, right? And then put lets in front of them. Go a word over, delete equals, go to the end, semicolon. Okay, and then, oh, this is just context. No, these two. Okay, and then I just repeat this here. We forgot to get the path. So that's this going in here, and I just say context. All of that just because I only really wanted to borrow it once. And then now that we've copied them, I can just do this. Semicolon, we should be done, right? This is API. Cause not type not matching. Oh, there is a mute in there. Still not right. Oh, I actually don't want the context. I got confused. I actually just wanted the context out, so I didn't need to do well, okay, we'll just add the API to it. Because we got to borrow to grab a bunch of stuff anyway. Context.api.clone. Semicolon, and then API here, and then API. So actually, yeah, this can go there. So actually all of this can go away because we don't need context after this, right? So all this just goes away. There. I thought I had to do that because I had to pass context here, but no, it's the API. All right, got it. Cool. 6 errors left. So this now takes composite boundary and API. Composite. What? The component, the boundary, and the API. So that's that. Cool. Two errors left. Here it's in context, so it's API.borrow. Mute on error. Reborrow as mutable. What's wrong with that? I don't need to do that, I guess, anymore. What's the type? It needs to be mutable. Okay, so slightly different conventions. It's because the on error itself is a option. So, actually, why did it let me take it out of the box like that? It shouldn't have let me do that. This is what I really want to do. Okay, that probably was an error, it just didn't see it yet. Okay, new with part. Takes a part, composite context API. Part, composite context. Composite context. Oh, shoot. I can change that though, right? Composite context. Yeah, we can just have the borrow be outside. Yeah, so we'll just do this and we'll move that borrow out. Should just be context, right? Actually, why is that not a self? Wouldn't it be better just to be self? Hold on. Don't do too many things at once, Raimu. What's the problem there? It is used. What's unused? It's used down here. Oh, no. It's in context, so I don't need that. Okay, yeah, go back here. I don't need to do that because we're passing self. Yeah, but I think this is better stated. Uh-oh, I got a lifetime issue. Hey there, Red Rampage Carpet. How are you? Look at that nice shiny green sword that you have. Red Rampage Crumpet, have you done any streaming in a while? Because I miss the game you were working on. One of these days, I'd like to see that game get further along. Yeah, it is a very nice sword. It's been a while. You want to get back to it? Can't wait. I'm getting myself in trouble with Rust lifetimes again. So I'm working on a tool that kind of is like Wireshark, where you can parse binary data, but rather than it working with a specific kind of thing, you get to define what the format is in a domain specific language. So, like if you write something like this, it can parse GIF files now. So it contains a compiler. It compiles us to in memory what they call abstract syntax tree representation of this, and it does an in order traversal with this along with data to give you what it looks like, like what each byte means. And I have it already written in C++. I'm porting it to Rust. And I'm just getting myself into trouble with lifetimes by restructuring my code. Good GIF, that's right. Nichidu, thank you for the correction. Okay. Let me see if I can reason out what's going on here. There's a I think maybe I just don't want to have that lifetime specified at all. Yeah, okay, that's probably what it was. I was overly constraining the lifetime there. Okay, yeah, so this, we don't have to do it anymore, right? We are ingesting, we're using a mutable reference to self. So we're putting, right, we don't need to pass on error anymore, right? So this, I can delete it, and I can delete this. That was the whole point to doing what I just did. Also, I don't need that. So we're packaging ourself into an API and then passing it to build the context. Yes. And look, 0 warning, 0 errors, and we'll pass all our tests, no problem. First try. Yes. Okay, so actually this is much cleaner now. So this is the API of the whole tool, really. Well, take that back. There are 3 libraries in the tool. Lexer, parser, and ingestion. And what I've been working on right now is the ingestion part. It uses an AST to break down the data and determine their meanings, right? How do you get the AST? From the parser. It turns a token stream into an AST. How do you get a token stream? You use a lexer to turn the input program into a token stream. So all 3 put together is the whole tool. So ingestion, you make one with formats. Formats is what you get from the parser. So that's in lib.rs of the parser. It gives you a formats, which is a hash map from string to format. If you give it a lexer, which is something that is obeys the iterator trait or implements the iterator trait, where each item is a token with a beginning and ending location. And that is the interface of the lexer, as shown if I scroll to the right place and hide this stuff. Yeah. there is an implementation of iterator for the lexer where that type has to match that type, and then this type has to match this type, and then it all fits together. Do you have a tokenizer? Yeah, that's the lexer. So my lexer is written using how do I show that? It all revolves around this class. So this is the implementation class, so to speak. It's called the output, which represents the output of a lexer, and I use the logos trait. Do I have a command for that? Yes. So it creates ridiculously fast lexers, is their claim. And it's pretty cool because you just import the crate and then it gives you a bunch of macros. So like it gives you a derive macro and it gives you a bunch of attribute macros for saying what's your white space, what's your error type, which things are tokens, which things you need a regular expression to parse it, and then what callback to do to actually interpret the match. And then I have to abstract it away from the parser so that the parser doesn't know we're using logos. We have a conversion from output to token, and token is our generic type that has no dependencies. So I have these layers in between the libraries like token and AST, and they're by design no dependencies on anything else. So that allows us to use dependency injection because the parser can work with anything that can generate tokens. Token has no dependencies, therefore the parser doesn't depend on the lexer. And the lexer also doesn't depend on the parser. They both are codependent on this API layer between the two of them called token. And then similarly, the parser and ingestion don't directly depend on each other. They depend on this AST library. And so you inject the parser into the ingestion. That allows me to replace the parser with something completely different. And the lexer, I can replace that with something completely different. And also inside of each of the lexer and the parser, I also have another separation. So I could keep the library and just change my implementation if I want. So I'm trying to achieve that ideal of separation of concern and dependency injection. So we only have dependencies to stable concrete abstractions. I didn't say that right. We only have dependencies on stable abstractions. The concrete things are encapsulated as much as possible. So the concrete lexer is buried in as this output type that uses logos, and the parser is really funky. So I'm using something called Lollerpop, and it's a funny little name. It stands for look ahead, left, right grammar, and they just added pop, I think, to make it sound like lollipop. But look ahead, left, right, or LILR is a kind of parser generator, and you basically give it grammar rules, and it takes an input token sequence and tries to match sequences of tokens and reduce them over and over and over and over again until you're left with the topmost symbol, which is, in my case, it's formats. So it tries to build the formats from things, and it should match what I had shown you earlier, right? This whole file matches formats because each of these things is a format, right? And a format has statements, and one kind of statement is a while statement, and it has sub-statements, and if also has sub-statements. So it all gets reduced to one format, and then all the formats together gets reduced to formats. And you tell it through these rules, you're basically telling it the grammar of the language. So like if we look at like return statement is return some expression semicolon, and that gets reduced to statement, right? Other things get reduced to statement, like a break or an error or an increment. And these things, like these are terminal symbols or tokens, and these are higher order constructs. So EXPR is itself going to have lots of grammar rules. And what's really wacky is they can be recursive, and they can You do things like order of operations by making different tiers. So like the traditional multiply and divide being higher order than subtraction and addition, you do it by having two different grammar rules, one at a different tier from the other, and then you do left versus right associativity depending by having a self recursive rule on the left for left associative or on the right for right associative. And if it's a non-associative operator, you have a lower tier on both sides. That's what the in is non-associative. A in B in C is a syntax error. Hopefully I'm not going way too fast. Done a good job achieving that here. Well, I spent like a bunch of months making the original implementation in C and C++, and you can see I didn't have abstraction layers between the lexer and the parser. And also the lexer didn't actually stand alone. The lexer was actually just generating the C code that the parser compiled, which is called formatting. But I spent a lot of time doing that. Actually, I did that before I was a streamer. And then it's only now that I kind of like say, I want to get back into that project. We're going to resurrect that, but we're going to port it to C or to Rust because it's fun. And then make these proper abstractions, and just do it right. Okay, let's close a bunch of these files we don't need anymore. Yep, we're done explaining this stuff. Okay, so I'm trying to follow the rule of if I don't know what to do next, I look at the to-dos, right? And if I run out of to-dos, I look for the ones that are comments to do. So I have roughly 21 plus 9 areas left in the code to do. So this one is adding strings. This one is typecasting to a string. This is the ignore statement. This one's the for loop. This one's binary operations. That's a pretty big one because there's lots of those. And then we have map, set, and vector construction and unary operations. What are you parsing? Anything that you can describe in my language. So I just went over it. Sorry you missed it. But as an example, we're parsing GIF or GIF, however you want to say it, by writing how such a file is formatted in my language, the tool can now parse those files. Similar to how Wireshark parses protocol layers and packets by using its data dissectors. Same principle. So you describe the format of something, you give it some input bytes, and then it walks the data structure in order and matches things so that in the end you get something like this, where like, okay, I read 3 bytes. It must be the GIF because GIF starts with header. Header starts with a string that's 24 bits long. Version, string, 24 bits long follows that. After the header, you have logical screen. Logical screen has a descriptor. The descriptor has 16-bit width. There we go. Yeah, I think it's super fun and we're gonna continue working on it. Actually, I just did a major refactoring. I should do a once over to make sure I didn't screw anything up. So I did a major refactoring and I pushed most of the implementation of the library down into a class called context. And that represents all the state machine information about the parser. Whereas ingestion is the same name as the library because it represents the API, right? I think I wanted to rename this API and then do a re-export of to call it ingestion. So if I do this right, it would be like pub use. Actually, you can't. I wouldn't do it at this level, right? I would do it at the lib level of, not that lib level, the lib level of the ingestion, right? I would do pub use ingestion as ingestion, and then I can change. Okay, it's gonna want to delete it, but I want to call that API really, right? Yeah, I want to call this API. So we're gonna rename it API. And then that changed like a gazillion things just now. So let's make sure it still builds. I'm using this thing called next test, which is pretty sweet. Traditionally with cargo to run your unit test, you do cargo test. And that's still cool. It just doesn't give us a nice summary line. And I'd have to scroll up to see that we passed all these tests, right? So Extremely Ryan told me about an extremely cool tool called Next Test that gives us a nice summary line at the end. And you're gonna see me run that a bunch. So yeah, I want to name it API, but at the top level here, I want to re-export it as ingestion. And here's another tricky thing, like I want to rename that file API. And I think this works. I just have to do save all. Hopefully they didn't screw everything up just now. I think this screws it up unless I rename this whole directory API. Yeah, now all the red lights twinkle. Cool. So the problem here is the use, right? This use superstar from this level is not what I want. Well, actually, no, this should work. Why didn't this work? Failed to resolve, use of undefined symbol. Oh, is that because one level up we renamed it to ingestion? Yes. Okay, so I think to fix this, the best way is to remove the use superstar and import everything correctly. So we have to manually import data component, import crate ingestion. That actually work? No, it didn't work. It's really confused now. I think what we do is we use crate ingestion as API. Yes. Okay. Buffer bitstream, import that, import bitstream. Okay, and then I wanted to leverage this, so that means data value. I'll import it, but I'm going to move this up one level to tests and just save this. This is to be used by a subset of the tests. So actually we're pretty good. Context. That I know how to get rid of this. So it's crate API avoids the, I can do the same thing in the tests. Rather than remapping ingestion back as API, I can do use crate API. The outer like users will still see it as API. No, I still see it as ingestion. Internally, we want to see it as API. So I shouldn't have ingestion as a word anywhere, except for the external API now. Okay, I need to fix that. How about whole words? Yeah, so that's the only place where ingestion shows up. Cool. Is now a good time as any to rename that? I think so. I think I wanted to rename this to just error. Just graduated college, started your job like 7 months ago. You feel like you do less work than you did as an intern. What has your experience been like getting more work on your plate? You do less work than you did as an intern? So, but how do your responsibilities compare to the internship? Is it at the same company? I have a lot of questions, but let me try to answer the question. What has my experience been like getting more work on my plate? My experience in my life has been I get more work on my plate as soon as I do a good job with the current work that I have, as long as I have management that recognizes it. So if you're not getting more work, is it because you're not doing a good job with the work you had, or is it because you don't have management that recognizes and appreciates your work? So ask yourself that, because there are different things you should do depending. Is it yourself or is it your management? You might find that it's not you at all. It's the situation you're in, and then there are things you can try to do to improve the situation, but you need to be prepared to move on. Different company, you get really small tasks each sprint. It's like expecting to speed up. You'll do like 3 hours of work a week. So does your management know you're idle from Thursday through the rest of the week? I guess. Do they know you're idle most of the time? And if so, why aren't they giving you more work? Because that sounds like very inefficient. Are you hourly or salaried? Are you only being paid for 3 hours of work a week? Do you share the code somewhere? I can't because of job rule number 3. Job rules. I'd love to share it, but the job I'm in right now, I'm not allowed to participate in open source without express written permission, which takes a long time. So yeah, bathroom homie, I think you need to evaluate the situation you're in and ask yourself, are you being appreciated, underappreciated, underutilized, or is it a performance thing? Yeah, they know and they act like it's normal, but you feel like no. So if they act like it's normal and you think that it's not, you have a mismatch in expectations, right? One of the fundamental problems in human interaction is you think it's normal and they think it's not normal. So you need to talk to them and you have to say, I don't think this is normal. Now, the trick is because they're the manager and you're the employee, you're going to have to be diplomatic about it. You might have to find like a creative way to let them know that it's not normal to you. You could say like, hey, I could use more work. I really want to prove myself. I think I'd be a great asset to this company. Do you have any opportunities for more things I can do? Oh, another way is if your management could respond positively to it, find things to do for them. Ask around. Are there some projects that just aren't getting done because they don't have enough people to do them? Just go do them in your spare time. See if they're amenable to it. If they react like, oh, that's not yours, why are you doing that? Then that sounds like a toxic environment, frankly. You want to get to a situation where your expectations match your management's expectations, right? And then you'll get the amount of work that you can handle and no more and no less, right? There'll be a little bit of like stressful periods and then bored periods, but it shouldn't stay stuck, always stressful or always bored. There should be a nice flow as long as you have the expectations set correctly. You change companies, you're working in R&D, you're doing 8 hours a day every day. New company doesn't have a ton of work for you. Well, if I was in a job where they just didn't have a lot of work for me to do, I'd probably ask them, are you guys okay with me streaming in my spare time? Like, are you going to pay me even though you don't have any work for me? Then should I go out and get a second job? I mean, come on. Keep bringing that up with your one-on-ones that say they'll do that, but they forget about you, I guess. Well, you have to hold them accountable. They hold you accountable for the work you do. You need to hold them accountable for the work they do. Remember, it's a two-way street. Their job is to give you work. If they're not giving you work, they're not doing their job. I would talk to my manager and say, hey, last time you promised you'd do this. How come you haven't done it? And if that keeps going, I would go to his manager and say, hey, my manager keeps saying that they'll give me more work, but he's not doing it, Now, hopefully they're it's a non-toxic environment, and they just you got to kind of nudge them to realize that they're screwing up and not doing their job. Be prepared to move on if you learn that it's a toxic environment and you can't help them to correct it. Right? Be like you're not, at the end of the day, they're not doing their job. You should not feel guilty, right? If you're doing everything they asked and they're just not asking you to do more, and you want to do more and you've told them and they still won't give you more to do, that's their problem. Or I should say it's their fault, not yours. So maybe time to move on because your management sucks. I don't know. There's only so much you can do. Don't blame yourself for other people's problems. You can try to help them with their management problem. It's up to you. You're going to stay until your stock vests and then leave. One thing you should maybe do is let them know that you plan to do that if they don't fix the situation. Say, hey, I'd really like to do more work for you. I'd really like the expectations to be set correctly. But, if it's not going to work out, then I'm just going to leave when my stock vests and see what they do. Of course, maybe you shouldn't follow my advice. If it's a toxic place, they might say, oh, in that case, then we don't need you anymore and get out of here now. And then I would feel terrible. So maybe get a second opinion from some other worker at that place. Ask him, should I kind of give him a hint that I'm going to leave, or should I keep it a secret because they're going to be toxic about it? Yeah, we're going to rename this. I think it should just be called error, and I'm hoping it's not going to collide with anything. Actually, it looks like it just worked, so maybe I don't have to worry about it. Yeah, what was I worried about? Okay, so that's exposed to top level, right? Pub use error. Data component data value, buffered bitstream. Ingestion is our API. Looking good. So how does the API look? We don't have, so at the top level, what do we have? Let's close everything. Ingestion, we have source. Source, we have API, data and tests. We have API, we have the top level things that are exported. Return scope. I have a feeling that doesn't belong here. That's not the best way to search. Let's go to return scope and we ask return scope, hey, show me all of your references. Okay, it's used at the API level in context. Okay, so it's used within context. Where else? It's used within statement within context. Oh, it goes in the data too. Is that why I put it at the top? Oh, because the implementation of data, it handles ingestion of elemental things. So it has to know about return scope. Okay, that's why it's at the top, because it's private to the module, but it's at module scope, just like tests. All right. Should I put a comment here saying about that? It's used to signal the scope of returning from executing a statement. We have this at module scope because it's shared between data and context. Because that wasn't immediately obvious. So I'm trying to follow the rule that whenever I look at my own code and it doesn't immediately hit me what I'm looking at, and I start asking myself questions, I say to myself, when I find the answers to those questions, I'm going to encode it back as a comment if I don't change anything. Sometimes the answer is that I should just change it so I don't have those questions next time. But sometimes like this, like, no, I'm not changing this, so I should at least have a comment. And so that the next time I'm here and I'm wondering why the hell is this at module scope, here, I've given myself the answer. All right, moving on. So like the other ones are obvious. There are errors that at the API level, right? Data is fundamentally the thing we're trying to parse and get data component is like the input and data value is the output, really. Bitstream is how we pass the bits in, and this is we offer one implementation, which is useful. We use it in our tests, but it could be used by the user. Subset is used at the data level in here. Subset. That one feels like it maybe ought to go within data, though. Yeah, this, let me look. If this is only used like within things that use data. So this is within data. This is itself, and this is within the context. Oh, that's why. It's shared between context and data. Well, yeah, I think that's fairly obvious. Something so soothing about TDD? I agree. You're gonna stay until your stock vests, and then that's you said that already. Okay, cool. I accept Red Rampage Comfort. Remember, if you're programming in Rust, then you do want to let your skills get rusty. One big problem with low work environment, you have to make sure to keep your skills sharp. Is it work from home bathroom? Well, that's one reason that I stream Rust stuff, because I don't want to I don't want to blunt my skills. I don't get to do Rust at work, so I do it on stream. It's 10:30. I should probably get some sleep soon. I'm glad that you guys appreciated the joke. I tried really hard not to laugh at my own joke that time, because I think it's a bad habit. Almost did it again. Okay. I think I'm okay with the top level. So what do we have? Data's fine. Tests, I'm pretty sure they're good too. API. Is context a proper subset of API? Actually, I don't think it, well, maybe because data doesn't, it's like it's a consumer. Well, yeah, what is this? How do the imports look? Yeah, it looks weird, doesn't it? I think context should not go under API. I think context should be promoted. So how ugly is it going to be to move it to the source level? Can I just do that, move, and then do that, move? And then I need to fix this up, right? So the mod context goes up to lib level. And we don't pub use it, right? But this one will specifically do crate context. I don't need to say that, right? I can just say that. Okay, maybe this isn't too bad. We just have to fix these up. So that's crate. Where is that actually? So this got broken by, no, that shouldn't have gotten broken. Just need to resave that. Why is this broken? Can't find module. Should have been able to. Okay, I think I completely need to restart the server, because I tricked it into thinking a file isn't there, but it is. See, bathroom homie, you're already doing one of the things I proposed, that you have free time, so you work on some stuff for someone else. I hope that you get paid for that. It is bizarre. At least in my experience, I've never gone from doing a lot of work to a little work. Actually, that's not true. If you're at a company for a while and you notice that your responsibilities are getting less and less, and you find like that you're not actually getting assignments, that's a bad sign. That means that they're preparing to let you go. If you start a new job and you have less work than the internship, that's different. That just sounds like a dysfunction in management. But yeah, if you ever like are having a whole lot of responsibilities and work and then starts to slow down and slow down, that's a bad sign. They're either trying to get rid of you or they themselves are running out of contracts or something. You get paid in food? I mean, I guess that's fine. All right, where is this type? It's under API. Oh, I guess so. I probably put it there. Yes, or put it right there. Actually, that makes sense to me. Okay, moving on. Private. Yep, I thought as much. So, formats. Yeah, this kind of makes sense that since we're packaging up and using it in context, it should be public. Yeah, I mean, well, hold on. This might be why I want to put context under API, because context consumes API and would allow me to use the private members of API since it's a submodule. But if it's not, and it still needs to consume API, then these must be public to make that work. But by making them public, I'm letting the client know about this. I guess it's not really a problem because it doesn't need to be really that opaque, right? Because this really is just, this is the API, so I don't even need a constructor. I could just let them fill it in for themselves, right? I think it's fine. I think it's fine. Actually, you know what that means? No, never mind. Hey, did I just make it buildable and runnable again? I did. First try, passing all our tests again. Okay, so API and context are independent. So it means that this level, we have a mod context, but we don't re-export that. Makes sense. Okay, so then I don't need this API folder. Move to trash. Context at the top level should like... this one might be getting a little long, right? 400 lines. So here I might start to consider taking some of these and putting them in submodules. Like execute statement. Execute statements, right? There's already a statements under context that maybe it should go there. Although this one's kind of nice and like, it's like different kinds of statement. So maybe I'll leave that where it is. Yeah, I think I'm good with that. I'm running out of time. I gotta get some sleep. Started at less than an hour a week for your first 3 months. You had no assignments. That just seems off to me. Stop documenting your code. Become what is it? Difficult to let go. Job security, right? Saw a huge cultural shift towards way less work. You shifted to work from home. I guess I'm just not used to that kind of company. So the companies I work at, they have too much work, and they struggled with the pandemic because it was just hard to keep all that work coordinated between people. It was hard, like, to actually get people together enough online. So yeah, I'm just used to having too much work to do and like having to prioritize and only doing the top priority work. So I guess I just don't have that experience of being in a place that had too little work to do. I'm still looking at this file thinking I'm not comfortable with the breakdown of it, especially like I have things that it needs to be sorted at least. Oh, and these functions that, yeah, I have to do is right. Refactor super gross return type. It's actually not that gross anymore. Tuples are kind of bad though. There was as much work as you could ever ask for. But more than that, I'll be overwhelmed after I caught up on the projects that I'm on. Why though? You're saying that you hardly get any work. Yeah, I don't get that. Would have worked with some other devs on their sprint tests and I'm surprised how little they had for 2 weeks. Is this company just like has a culture of underutilization? Like lazy developer culture? Kind of sounds like it. Okay, let me stop and consider. What calls this? Why do I have this now? I don't need this, right? Why can't I just call it directly? This seems like a useless function now. I think I had it when I had that class separation, which I don't have anymore. Now I can just do that directly, right? Yeah. Didn't need it. Got rid of it. Goodbye. Set current. Same thing here. Like, why do I need this? Yeah, I don't need this. Current statement span equals sum. Now now the function's useless. This makes sense to me a little bit in that it's shuffling around boundaries. Populate composite arguments. Yeah, makes sense. New with part. Yes. New with composite. Yes. Oh, this one smells like it should be a method. So let's fix that. So this becomes a mute lowercase self and context becomes self. And then I chase the error down and I just do self dot new with part like that. Okay, and if I'm just doing that and following up with that, can't I just combine these two? Just take that and do that. Delete those 2 lines and I'm done. Except for I messed that up. Cut, paste, delete, delete. There we go. Mr. Balrog, what do you call a Christmas tree lying on the ground? Or what do you call an Xmas tree lying on the ground? A Ymas tree. Okay. 3 out of 10, Mr. Balrog. 3 out of 10. I think that's why Nightshade dude wants to ban you. You gotta aim higher with those jokes, man. Mr. Balrog, usually you're a solid 6 out of 10. Come on, man. Oh, right. I was looking at this earlier thinking like this is really awkward. Maybe there's a way to improve this. Got to give them more depth. See, there you go. Now we're talking like at least a 5, if not 6 out of 10 with that one. I see which that was that you were just letting us think it was that was a whole joke, but really you were just giving us the intro. Oh, I see. It was a two-parter. So the fact that we have this the build part, yeah, it's the unwrap or else really goes with the build part. It doesn't have anything to do, like the map should be the last thing, right? So I could at least move this up, right? No? Why can't I move that up? Oh, right. If I move it up, I gotta do like a map error and then early exit, right? Oh, but I can't because it's return scope. Damn it. Okay. I think that I was gonna make this let that equal that else. Because I'm not using that error anyway right now. Is there an actual error associated with that? Yes. Okay, then what conceivably would I do with that error? It doesn't make it back out, right? We're just saying that the data component is erroneous. So then I really don't care that it's an error. So then it becomes a let okay else. And then we just put this here. Oh, wait. Shoot. There's extra stuff after this. Okay, never mind. This requires more thought when I'm not tired. Yeah, this will keep the to do because it needs to be refactored when I'm not tired. Let me look for easier things to work on. In context API word, I'm cool with this. I think. Let me look. Yeah. Oh, that looks good. Oh, this is kind of weird. Is this new with composite ingest component used anywhere else? Yes, that's why it looks weird. Because it's recursive. And the only time we don't use return scope is the very top level. Yeah. One way I could clean this up, I guess, is just do a .0. But I hate hiding the fact that it's data. Okay, well, leaving it the way it is for now. Statement itself looked okay overall, but the internals of this, maybe I need to work on it. Super context, yes. Do the other things look like that? Super context? Yes. Okay, they all say that. Okay. Thank you for the follow. I appreciate it. Hopefully we helped you out with some advice and things to think about. Getting tired. Varied function, value reference, better expression. Actually, this looks really nice and clean now. I like it, actually. The evaluate function was really nice and readable. Evaluate the arguments, make a new context with a composite. new formatted without origin, ingested as a component, return its value. Oh, except for one problem. If this data has an error, we didn't mark the outer. Okay, let me mark a to do, because we need to have a test for that. If function if the function triggered an error, shouldn't the composite be marked with an error as erroneous? Question for future Raimu. I'm gonna close this for now. Close this for now. Close that for now, and that. Now I'm just looking at context. Okay, so add child in context. Add local. Wait, what? Oh, is it because add child in context does the check for us? Yeah, we get a collision. If it was already in keyed children, it's a collision. So if it didn't collide there, this seems like it's something we don't need here. Yeah, I don't think this actually adds much. So I'm just going to take it and go to where we call it and just paste it there. To string. And do I even need to care about the return value? I don't even think I need to care about it. If anything, can I just do an what does an assert do outside of a test? I don't remember. Assert. Asserts that a Boolean expression is true at runtime. This will invoke panic if the provided expression cannot be valued true at all times. Always checked in both debug and release builds, but cannot be disabled. Testing, forcing runtime invariance in safe code, whose violation cannot result in unsafety. I think this is actually what I want, right? This is better expressed as assert. And it allows me to have an argument, right? Argument. Example. Yeah. So I can keep my string if I want. So why don't we do that? So comma that. Actually, what I really should say is let's rewrite this. Local existed even though local existed without how about pre-existing local without child collision. Because what happens is when you add a child in context, it'll check for a hash map collision, and it would have returned an error, which we would have caught here. So if we didn't hit an error there, that means we didn't collide. But then if insert returns false, that means it was already in locals without it being a child. So pre-existing local without it. How about pre-existing non-child local? Or pre-existing non-child local. Yeah, that would be a bug. Okay, I'm good with that. Okay, cool. Keep going. I'm looking at things I can fix without doing a lot of thought because I'm tired. I need to go to bed. But I don't want to stop. This is like being addicted to coding. I actually don't like using panic because panic to me feels like that you couldn't really figure out a more elegant way to declare. Like, this is more declarative than a panic, right? Panic is more like, just do it, right? This is more like, it should be this way, and then the implication is if it's not, we would panic. Kind of like an expect says, we expect this, but if it's not, panic. Like, that's why you'll see me use unreachable when I'm making a claim that you should not be able to reach this code, but if it does, I have a string. I could have just done a panic, but then panic leaves it open to like, why did we panic? Here, we're panicking because we're asserting it should not have been possible for it to be false, right? Or in other places, we assert that it's not reachable to get there at all. So that's why I like that better than panic. Okay, anyway. I can sense that I'm over-explaining again. Yeah, this definitely needs refactoring, but I don't have the brain power for it. Cool. Although I feel this would be better expressed with a map and a map error. Like that. Hold on. I should be able to rewrite this. Let's see which way looks better, okay? So we're going to have two alternatives. The alternative I'm thinking of is this dot map value to that, and then dot map error. In this case, we don't use the error, so it's underscore to that. Here. And oh, this would be unwrap or else. Well, I didn't like my unwrap or else. Oh, right, we do get the error right there, right? Yeah, so which way looks better? Does that look better than that? In a way, I think this looks better because it's making it explicit that we're mapping the value to something else. We're mapping it to a return scope and we have a side effect, right? Whereas this is like more old school, saying that if it is okay and has a value, then put that value there. And then this looks kind of clumsy because we went from being imperative to being like, okay, what is that? Oh, that's the return value. Where here, it's more like this is a side effect, and that is what we're mapping the value to. We're mapping it to a return scope. This is more lines, though. This is more easily readable by someone who's used to imperative. I don't know. Any opinions in chat? 1 or 2? I'm kind of leaning towards 2 myself because it's more compact. It just looks weird to me a little bit. No opinions? Then I'll just go with 1. All right, 2. No opinions. We're going with 2. Okay. While statement. Loop, and then a match with, oh yeah, this one is also kind of strange because everything is a return except for there's one continue in there that's the only thing that kind of matches that loop, right? And it's buried inside of 2 levels of match. The problem is that we have to evaluate the expression and then we have to cast it to bool. And then we have to execute statements, and only if then we get a next do we continue. Otherwise, I would do a while and then all of these things that, yeah. But then we also have these other paths. Okay, yeah, so I don't know. I don't know what to do with that. Yeah, I think I just need to rest my brain for a while. Come back at this tomorrow morning. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go rest my brain and look at this tomorrow morning. I'm not going to panic. I'm just going to unwrap the stream to RW Grim. That's what I'm going to do. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'll be back at 7 a.m.-ish a.m. Pacific time. Good night. Have a great rest of your day or night. I'll see you tomorrow, okay? Bye.